Welcome back, everybody. If you're a landlord in North Carolina, specifically Asheville, and you've got a tenant who isn't paying rent, your first instinct is typically to file an eviction. And that makes sense. I totally get that. But one thing that is sometimes lost in that conversation is that an eviction sometimes is more costly than your alternative. Now, I'm not saying let somebody live at your house for free or try to pretend that there's a problem that's going on that isn't. So don't be the ostrich, don't bury your head in the sand, but an eviction and proceeding that as your first alternative to somebody not paying rent could set you back from a financial standpoint. An eviction, if it goes quickly and smoothly right now in North Carolina, Buncombe County specifically, it's going to take you 30 to 45 days. If there's an appeal or it gets pushed back, it could be up to 2 months. Worst case scenario might be 3 months. But I want to talk about what's the faster, cheaper, and less stressful way to get your house back. Control of your property when you're going through a tumultuous situation is paramount. It's more important, in my opinion, to have control of your property or to have control of your asset than it is to recover every last little piece of missing rent that might exist. And so today, that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about cash for keys. Cash for keys is a process here that you can use where you basically pay somebody to leave your house. And so a way that might look like is like, hey, Johnny, Rodrigo here with Vesta Property Management. It's the 15th of February. You haven't paid rent. We've sent you your notice. You've ignored your notice. At this point in time, I'm going to be spending money with an attorney to evict you, or I can take that same amount of money, maybe a little bit less, and I can just pay you to leave. Now, there's a couple of catches when you have this conversation for cash for keys is one, it's always going to be contingent on the property being returned in good shape. The terminology we like to use is broom swept condition. All of your personal stuff is out of the house. Somebody's done a basic clean, and we can go in there and do a deep clean, maybe a little bit of touch up, and then we could turn around and re-rent it. This is a tough conversation for some people because it feels like you're rewarding bad behavior. Somebody who owes you money, you're turning around and paying them. That part is true. I mean, you are definitely paying somebody who owes you money. But the important part is that you're controlling your asset in the house and making sure that the house is delivered back to you in good shape and in good condition is more important than the rent. Control of the property is more important than the rent. So let's talk about just from a math standpoint. So when you go to file an eviction, and we're going to use Buncombe County numbers here in Asheville area, you got to do the court filing fee, about $96. Let's just call it $100. Depending what attorney you're working with, that can be $500 to $1,500. And then if you're losing rents, let's just say you have a lower end unit, it's $1,400 a month. Right there, we're already at $3,000 in lost revenue or in costs. And then if you have to deal with any sort of turnover costs, painting, just cleaning, things like that, that can be $500, $1,000, all the way up to $2,000. And then you're going to have to deal with vacancy when you release. Vacancy right now, 30 to 45 days on market. So that's another lost month of rent. You're very quickly looking at costs that are going to get up into that $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 range. And that's expensive. Obviously, one bad eviction that plays itself out like that can take out a year or 2 years worth of savings or of revenue that a property produces. And this is why it's important to detach the emotional side. This person owes me money, they need to pay me, et cetera, to why did you buy the property to begin with? You bought it to be an asset, for it to be an investment, and for it to produce. And the quickest way for a property to produce is to be a home for somebody who cares about the property and is putting roots down. So if somebody is not treating your property the right way, they're not paying rent, they're not honoring the agreement, it's more important to find the new person and give you an opportunity to find that new person who's going to honor that agreement. Don't worry about chasing for every last penny. There's a way to do that, and that'll be a separate video on what you do with collections and things like that, if that's really what you want to do. But this one is about cash for keys. So now we did the math. I think we can agree that taking control of your property is going to be more important than pursuing every little bit of rent that's owed. And so how do you calculate that offer? Roughly what your opening attorney fees are going to be. And I think most people resonate with that phrasing and just kind of with the way you frame it. So if a tenant, Johnny, in this example, hears that you're paying for an attorney and it's going to cost $500 for that attorney, or you can pay them $500, they understand why you're making that offer. They can understand, okay, so they're paying somebody, it's going to either be me or the attorney. If you want to offer a little bit more, then that makes sense. The quicker that you're asking for somebody to leave the house and to get the keys back in exchange for the cash, the more your cash offer is going to need to be. If somebody's vacating a property in 7 days, they probably need a storage unit. And so you're going to have to kind of take that into account about, okay, I really want this property back. It's if I pay a little bit more, I can get the property back in the next 7 days, or if I pay a little less, it might be 14 or 21 days. And so that's just the way to think about how much you're willing to offer. It's about making sure that you're making an offer that's compelling enough to get somebody to make a move and to give you back the property. And you also have to be careful that you don't make such a nice offer, let's say, such a high offer that somebody thinks that they have a one-up on you and that they're going to be able to run you over and take advantage of a situation. I'm not an attorney. This is not legal advice. All those disclaimers. Our experience is that for most properties, somewhere between $500 to $1,000, when we had to do cash for keys, ends up being the right amount. Let's start at the beginning. We run into a situation, rent is due on the 1st. On the 5th, they get their notice. Some people do 10-day notices. We do a 5-day notice. And so let's say 5 days are up. Then you get to the 11th of the month and you decide to move forward and file for an eviction. So you file the eviction and the complaint. You get your hearing, let's call it 10 days after that. So the 11th, 10 days, this puts you at the 21st day of the month. Let's say you go there and you win. Nobody appeals. You get your judgment. And then after that, you get to go ask for a writ of possession. And then after that, if they don't move out on their own, you still have to wait to get possession where the sheriff's going to go deliver it. And then they are going to meet you back at the property afterwards to actually get the keys and for them to change the locks. And as a reminder, even after you change your locks, you have to give the tenant more time to get their stuff out under your supervision. So this process, without any appeals, can take you 30 to 45 days. The tenant has a couple of different opportunities to file an appeal, where they say they disagree with what's happening, and then that's going to get reviewed and you're going to have to go back to court. If there is an appeal, then that means you might be looking at, instead of 30 to 45 days, you might be looking at 60, 80 days. And so you do want to navigate that part carefully. And we really recommend if you end up having to go through an eviction, work with an attorney. They're going to take the guesswork out of it. And once again, you don't want to be guessing on what is happening for you to get control of your property. You want to have confidence and be able to execute against it. So that's the timeline if you go through an eviction, right? So what's the timeline if you do a cash for keys? Rent is due on the 1st. On the 6th, they get their 5-day notice. The 11th, they haven't paid. On the 12th, hey, Johnny, you haven't paid rent. Are you planning on paying it? Are we getting a payment agreement in place? Or are you just like, it's just not happening? It's just not happening. You're going to have to evict me. Okay, Johnny, listen, I'm going to have to evict you because that's what you're telling me. You're digging your heels in. I'm going to have to go hire an attorney. It's going to cost me $750 to hire this attorney. I don't think the attorney needs any more of my money. They don't need anybody. I prefer to take that same $750 instead of paying it to the attorney. I prefer to give that to you so you give me the house back. Is that something you'd be open to discussing? As you discuss, you get on the same page about how quickly Johnny can get out of the property. And let's just say you're having this conversation on the 12th and they say, hey, I need 2 weeks. So that's 14 days. You're like, okay, great. So 14 days from the 12th, give or take, I guess that's the 26th of the month. And then at that point in time, you're getting your property back. A couple of things to keep in mind. Once again, I'm not an attorney. This is not legal advice. Every situation is different. Please consult with your attorney before you do this. What I'm sharing is just based on our own personal experiences managing properties here in the Asheville area. So when you make that offer, there's a couple of things that are important to keep in mind. One, make sure that you're doing the timing first, right? So that shouldn't be the first lever you pull to get control of your property. It should be closer to the end of your options. You want to follow your lease first, right? Serve the notice. You want to show that they are paying, penalties for not paying on time, for the late fees, etc. And then right before you hire the attorney, that's when we do it. That's when we say, Johnny, we're hiring an attorney. It's going to cost us $750. Do you want that money to go to the attorney or do you want that money to go to you? Johnny says, awesome. You know what? I'll take the $750. That's super helpful. I am out of here. And you're like, great. So this is what we're going to do, Johnny. I'm going to send you a document. You need to sign it. I'm going to sign it. And this is what's going to guide the next 2 weeks of our arrangement. And this is an arrangement, Johnny. I need the house back in good shape and it needs to be in broom swept condition. If you do that, I will not file an eviction against you and I will give you $750 when you come and drop off your keys. All right, let's assume everything goes perfectly. The 2 weeks pass. It's the 26th, I think we said. And you meet Johnny at the property. The property looks like it's in good shape. It's been in broom swept condition. Johnny's got copies of the keys. He hands you the keys. You hand Johnny the $750 and then you're out of there. Just joking. There's one more thing. You want to make sure you get in writing, and you're going to sign something else. You're going to get an agreement saying that Johnny received the $750. And also, this is very important, is that they're surrendering possession of the unit. It's very important that you get that in writing so that they can't come back later and say, oh, I was still a tenant, I have things in the house, or anything like that. Surrendering possession of the unit is very important, of the last piece of that cash for keys puzzle. When you get that, you sign it, make sure you save it, and then you've got your property back. Johnny has the cash, you have the keys, and at that point in time, you would have a successful cash for keys agreement. So if you have any questions about doing cash for keys, or if you think this is a crazy approach to get a property back for a non-paying tenant, let me know. Let me know in the comments below. If you have any questions about working with us, of course, we'd love to connect with you. You can go to our website and set up a call or just fill out the form. Protecting your property, controlling your property is the most important piece in a situation like that. Cash for keys is typically faster and cheaper. So if you found this helpful, hit the subscribe button, share this with a friend. We're working on putting out a couple of videos over the next few weeks, so hope to see you on the next one. Once again, I'm Rodrigo with Vesta Property Management, managing properties here in the Asheville area. See you on the next one. Take care.